A to the K.
to the K.
To the K.
Hello, welcome to the A to the K Wrestling Show, and welcome to the very first edition of Debate. We put it out there on
that describes your debating skills.
Oh, he started early. So, we put it out there on Instagram about which segments we should cover for the next couple of weeks. We covered What If, so if you've not checked that out from last week, we discussed what if Vince McMahon was to resign. But second on that list was Debate. We put some topics up, and the topic that you chose was the Attitude Era the best era? So that's the question we're going to be talking today. We also put up who's going to be debating for, and who's going to be debating against. And you voted for Anthony to debate for. So Anthony will be coming at this from the perspective that the Attitude Era was the best era. So you'll be coming at it from the wrong perspective. Meanwhile, I'll be coming at this from the right perspective. Is that obviously Attitude Era wasn't the best era.
So, before we get into the debate, what I want to say is, I love the format, and I sincerely appreciate the engagement from our socials to make the format work, because what I love about this is, and I will never reveal our thoughts on this, you probably can gather it if you do listen to us regularly, what our actual thoughts on this are. But what I love about the concept is, because you guys have voted for who's for and who's against, as well as voting for the topic, because you voted who's for and who's against, Karl might not necessarily believe the thing he is trying to defend here. He might think the Attitude Era is the best era, but his job is to convince you that it's not. And that is the fun here, because he now has to find a defense for this. And I think that makes for an interesting topic, because it makes us have to look at stuff more objectively, doesn't it?
Certainly
to find
does.
a reason, for our argument. So, let's say one time this debate is over Goldberg is an awesome wrestler, right? And I have to defend that, right? I'm going to have to try and be fair and not be the biased twat that I normally am. And that is the fun of debate, and that's why I think this has the makings of a really fun thing to do.
So please, the next time we put a poll up, and that's obviously going to be an option, please, do the right thing. Do the right thing.
But to the topic at hand, Karl, the debate this week is the Attitude Era.
Mm-hmm.
Was it the best era of wrestling?
Nope. That's my opening argument. It's basically the next 30 minutes is just no.
I want to know, right? The era that put WWE back on the map, that saved WWE from extinction, the era that we remember as children fondly. I want to know how you can even suggest that this is not the best era of wrestling.
Well, we remember it fondly as children because we were children, we were stupid, we didn't know better. Because, Anthony, there's many, many other eras in the wrestling world, and many, many that were better than the Attitude Era, in my opinion. So first of all, we've got to ask ourselves what we mean by best. What do you define as best, Anthony? Because, are you talking financially? Because no, it was not the most financial year for the WWE in the Attitude Era. It's never been more profitable than it's been right now. So certainly, the Attitude Era was not the best era from a financial perspective. Are we talking drew the biggest crowds? No, it didn't, did it? Because the biggest crowds were drawn around WrestleMania 32, weren't they, Anthony? So it's not about crowd size, is it? And then, of course, you must mean talent. Of course, it's about the talents, We had The Rock and us. Well, no, actually, what about the Golden Era? We had Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant, Randy Savage, Ultimate Warrior, The Undertaker in his prime, Ric Flair, Bret Hart, Roddy Piper, Mr. Perfect, British Bulldog, Razor Ramon. I see, it's just so clearly from a talent perspective.
Okay. Hot take. Razor Ramon was only the commodity he was in WCW.
What? This is a whole new debate.
NWO made that, man.
Come on, Chico.
But, no, let me go right back. Let's go right back to your point. Financially, right? It wasn't the most profitable for WWE, but it was the foundation for what WWE became to be the most profitable, to be the only wrestling company for near, 2 decades, however long it was. Let's face it, if the Attitude Era hadn't have happened, WWE would not be making money anywhere near what it does today. So it might not have been on the books as profitable at the time, but I totally refute your first claim that in terms of profitability, it wasn't the best because it set the foundation for WWE to make the big money it does.
But that's like saying, though, isn't it, that if there wasn't the golden era and there wasn't the Capital Wrestling era, and if Vince McMahon didn't buy the company from his dad in the first place, then the company wouldn't have even existed to be profitable in the Attitude Era. So how far back do you want to go? If we're talking numbers and we're talking
we had
facts.
your golden era and we had this roster of amazing wrestlers by your claim, but then at the same time, this was a product that was going so stale that Eric Bischoff was able to beat them for 83 weeks.
Oh, that's the first shot fired there. But I mean, to be fair though, if you think about it, he was still beating. WCW was still beating WWF for them. In them 83 weeks, that was part of the Attitude Era. So basically, Attitude Era was losing to WCW for a good portion of them weeks.
No. Okay,
wasn't it, Anthony?
I take your point, but the Attitude Era was made, and this is not what we're debating. Luckily, the Attitude Era was made by the feud with WCW. Them having to step up and become an edgier product as a result of what WCW were doing is the Attitude Era, isn't it?
I mean, I see what you're trying to say, but when you think about
if you want to say legends like from the golden era, like Hulk Hogan, the racist, or all these treacherous assholes who decided to jump ship to other companies because of money, yeah, we can call them great wrestlers if you want, or you can look at people like stars that were made during the Attitude Era, stars that we still talk about today, the likes of Edge. Undertaker was still around for the Attitude Era. I dare say still in his prime and one of the best Undertakers during the Attitude Era, in all fairness. We got the likes of Triple H as well, who is a
one
legend
of the best Undertakers.
One of your favourites, and you don't even mention him because he's a product of the Attitude Era, and DX was a product of the Attitude Era. You don't mention him because it doesn't help your argument, you treacherous son of a bitch.
Who's this, Triple H?
Yeah. Come
on. Right, people that you haven't mentioned...
Did you love him as the Blue Blood, did you?
well, to be fair... but if you think about it, you still had Shawn Michaels. Some might say he was one of the trailblazers of the Attitude Era because of everything that happened with the Montreal Screwjob. And I fucking hate Shawn Michaels. So, you will not convince me that, he had anything to do with the most successful era in wrestling, because that simply wasn't the case. And it's easy, Anthony, to list, one or two, like, Triple H and, your Stone Cold and all that. Let's not forget some of the fantastic, list of characters we had in the Attitude Era, shall we? We had some wonderful people. We had porn star gimmicks. We had, pimps. We had hoes. We had Vince McMahon making Trish Stratus bark like a dog.
Look, if we're going to suggest that the Attitude Era should have been full of porn stars and pimps, I don't know where we're coming from with this.
I mean, you talk about some of the big storylines, obviously the Stone Cold Vince McMahon stuff, which, okay, yeah, that was some really compelling stuff. The Attitude Era also gave...
No, you're defending, like, the golden era, so surely we want the Stone Cold Steve, or the stunning Steve Austin that had hair. Surely that's the one you love. Don't want none of this Stone Cold nonsense.
Well, you see, Stone Cold was one of the few bright spots on what was, a pretty terrible era, really. It was the type of storytelling, Anthony, that gave us Val Venus getting his pee-pee chopped off. It gave us Al Snow being fed his own dog. It gave us the birth of the love child of Mark Henry and Mae Young. That was an actual hand, Anthony. So, I mean, when...
Yeah,
you've got to be right. Attitude Era must be the best era. It gave us so much,
Oh yeah, because the golden era, of course, never had any misses like I don't know, the gobbledygooker.
The gobbledygooker was a legend. I will never have you say.
We can point out silly shit all day, Carl, but let's face it, Mae Young's hand has even gone down as like a running. I love the fact that happened because that's a running joke to this day. Mark Henry embraces that joke.
Exactly, it's a running joke because it symbolises the era it was part of, a joke.
Because we can look back nostalgically at an era that carved WWE into what it is. Even when you talk about, the crowds being drawn. It's like WrestleMania 32 wouldn't have had the record-selling crowds it did had we not have built WWE to what it is today.
Yeah, you see, you keep using this. You keep going back to, well, if it wasn't for the Attitude Era, we wouldn't have the crowds of today. But then my argument is, if it wasn't for the Golden Era, we wouldn't have had the Attitude Era in the first place. So
well, because the Golden Era would have sank the WWE had we not have switched up to the Attitude Era, Carl. The WWE would have lost out to WCW completely, and then we'd be debating whether WCW was, I don't know, good. I don't even know why I'm calling it WCW. Coming up there. But for me, the Attitude Era that was the pivotal moment in the WWE's history to say, is this place going to keep going or is it going to sink? And that is why surely it's the best era, because this is the era that made them. This is the era that made WWE what it is.
See, I disagree. I think looking back...
Also, Kurt Angle.
Well, Kurt Angle really came into his peak during the Ruthless Aggression era, Anthony. When you reference Kurt Angle's rap all the time,
I am not allowed to agree with you in this debate, so I can't agree with that, even though it's totally true.
So you can't be throwing Kurt Angle at me.
Was still doing all the because surely the milk truck was Attitude Era, right?
Maybe scraped it, yeah.
That's got to be
even
Attitude Era.
Even the milk truck
that was in the Attitude Era, but milk truck Kurt was still
even
good,
the milk truck though. Like, let's be honest, that was just a rehash of the Austin thing. The Attitude Era. There's a reason it only lasted 3 years. Is because it was right. Don't get me wrong. The one who was holding the steering wheel for the Attitude Era was Vince Russo. Are you going to hang your hat on the work of Vince Russo as the greatest of all time?
Vince Russo gets more hate than he should, right? In all fairness, right? He had some wild choices, but he wasn't as bad as people make out, right? However, Vince Russo wasn't the only factor for the Attitude Era, right? The character developments, you can pick some wild options like Val Venis and stuff like that. The characters were more colourful and more entertaining than they were in the Golden Era, in the Attitude Era.
Well, they definitely were more colourful. Let's be honest.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. I mean, we had the Ministry and everything. It went very dark for a while, let's be honest. But on top of that, production value went up. Licensed music, which I still miss, right? Much better than the Golden Era. I will hang my hat on this, right? Hulk Hogan coming out with Voodoo Child. That's awesome. Licensed music is the way to go. Golden Era, the entrances were more boring. The character work was more boring. It's like, oh, he's got tassels, yay.
Oh, so you mean... You mean when Hogan came out to Voodoo Child in the Ruthless Aggression era? No.
No, I was using as an example of licensed music.
What was it? What was the main licensed
Rage
music?
Rage Against the Machine. Right?
It wasn't even Rage. It was a rip-off.
It was Rage. No, it was Rage.
It wasn't.
It was Rage.
It was bullshit. Bullshit. That was Rage.
That was Rage. Like, this is a totally separate debate. You're telling me Triple H's music wasn't Rage Against the Machine?
It was not Rage Against the Machine. It was a cover band, which just goes to show how shit that era was. They couldn't even get...
poked a massive hole in my argument. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't think that's true. That can't be true.
That is totally true. Yeah, it was some kind of tribute band. It sounds very much like Rage, but it was not Rage Against the Machine. And if you think about it, licensed music and stuff like that, maybe like Motorhead, that started to kind of come in, but that only really got...
But, licensed music or no, because I may be wrong on the Rage Against the Machine thing, the music was cooler. It was better.
See, I don't know, because are you besmirching the wonderful Jim Johnston?
Jim Johnston was an absolute legend and a national treasure.
And he him and Jimmy Hart made some of the best music of all time, in the eras before the Attitude Era, that is.
Yeah, do you know what he did? He
iconic ones.
He improved and was better in the Attitude Era than the Golden Era, and he'll admit that himself.
Nah, because, you just said yourself, they basically went, we're going to take all this quality music that you guys are producing and we're just going to license, tracks from wannabe cover bands. That's what they did, Anthony.
I still don't know if that's true or not.
That is true.
I didn't prepare for this. But I don't know, man. Like, how can you not prefer the Attitude Era, Carl? That's what you grew up in. You wouldn't have got Kane in the Golden Era.
I mean, and look how that turned out, Anthony.
That man was willing to set himself on fire.
Yeah, and now he sets himself on
Pure
fire with the words he
entertainment.
speaks as a politician, doesn't he? Right?
Okay, Mankind.
Well, yeah.
Undertaker versus Mankind. One of the most iconic and hardcore matches in history was in the Attitude Era.
So dangerous and irresponsible, that match, Anthony. Just, you know.
Sorry, can you like can you think of a decent or iconic or even memorable match from the Golden Era
I mean, pretty much
that compares to this?
that compares to which? The Hell in a
Mankind
Cell
versus
match.
Undertaker,
Pretty much all of them. Hogan versus Andre. Brett versus
yeah.
Piper.
With the
Brett
leg
versus
drop, yeah.
Perfect. Brett versus
Hogan doing
Owen.
a leg drop. I can't wait. Like it's exciting stuff.
No, it was the slam that was heard around the world, Anthony. He slammed Andre the Giant. That was, that meant so much more than Mick Foley slamming himself off a table.
That's how easily impressed the Golden Era was. It's like, ooh, he lifted a guy. Wow.
But that's how desperate the fans of the Attitude Era were to be impressed. They were basically the moody kids going, impress me? Oh, what, you've just nearly murdered yourself? Pfft, so? You know what I mean? It was a terrible
Generation X, motherfucker.
era.
The X is for extreme.
Exactly.
But, nah, come on. You have to admit, production value.
Production value, come on.
Value, everything was bigger and better in the Attitude Era.
Even Brawl for All?
Even Brawl for All, that goes down iconically. What a great innovative thing to do. Okay, some things didn't quite pan out, but we laugh about that today. It makes for fun memories, Carl. I can be so much more nostalgic over the Attitude Era than I can be over any other era because it invokes so many fun memories. Even the bad stuff is still fun to look back at to this day.
I don't know.
You said about Val Venus before, did we not still laugh at the whole penis thing? Like, that was kind of funny, and we all laugh about it now. Was it
terrible.
in bad taste? Maybe.
It was terrible. It was all in bad taste. And obviously, the mistreatment of the women in the women's division or lack thereof, Anthony. Are you championing an era where women's wrestling was looked at as a joke?
An era that included the likes of Lita and Chyna and trying to have some actual legit wrestling in it. You mean the era that probably had more legit women's wrestling than the follow-up reality era with the hot lesbian action and such like that? Yeah, I do think Attitude Era was probably the better era for women's wrestling, yeah.
I mean, come on. Attitude Era was full of, bra and panties matches and all that stuff. It was much later when the likes
women are allowed to wear underwear, Carl.
Trish.
It's called empowering, okay?
what about pudding matches and
people like pudding, Carl.
Evening gown competitions.
Also, women can't
like
dress fancy now because the wrestlers. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, this was also the era where Pat Patterson and Joe Briscoe dressed in drag as women and had an evening gown match where they had to rip each other down to their bra and panties.
So men can't wear dresses now, is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, they might be able to wear dresses, but not Pat Patterson and Joe Briscoe.
This is my new technique for the rest of this debate.
Turn it all around. And do you know why? It's because you're floundering. It's because you know, Anthony, don't you?
No, I think I'm not going to stand here and try and hide the fact that Attitude Era had some issues. I'm sure you're going to bring up Trish Stratus at some point as an argument to this, but everyone across the world remembers The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Triple H. These are almost household names.
Nobody remembers Triple H.
Everyone remembers Triple H.
Everyone remembers the likes of... I mean, if you think of wrestling, if you say, names from wrestlers, they'd say Hulk Hogan. They would say John Cena.
Look, I'm not being funny. They would say Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, a product of the Attitude Era.
No, you see, even he wanted to, get away from the stigma that came from being in the Attitude Era, that he ran away to Hollywood. He just didn't want anything to do. Even The Rock didn't want anything to do with the Attitude Era, Anthony.
Speaking of running away to Hollywood, wasn't one of your arguments Hulk Hogan?
Oh, yeah, he didn't run away. He slowly walked over there.
Because he is a real American.
And to be fair, the Attitude Era wasn't even original. They just basically stole what WCW were doing, didn't they? They had the NWO. They were doing cutting-edge TV.
They
responded by stealing it. Your favourite era is stolen.
Generation X is better than NWO.
It's not even original.
That should be a debate in itself, I suppose. But Generation X didn't copy nothing. They responded to. Simple as that. NWO, yeah, I loved it when every single person on a WCW roster was a member of the NWO for no reason.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, DX, what happened with that? It was like, well, Sean's gone, so I guess we put it with Triple H, and then he'll do nothing for ages, and then, I don't know, we'll stick X-Pac with him.
But now it's made for countless reunions now. It's great seeing D-Generation X get back together for the 100th time. That wouldn't happen without the Attitude Era.
I mean, yeah, okay. But still. I mean, I don't know, if you look at the whole spectrum of the time that WWE's existed, obviously Attitude Era was what, maybe 3 years? If you want to technically class it as end of 1997, it really started in 98, and it ran to about 2001, before the Ruthless Aggression stuff kicked in. So really, if you think about it as well, I was making a case for the golden era from a talent perspective and a storyline perspective, but if you think about it, it was around 2002 that the roster was the most stacked it's ever been. That is when you like your Kurt Angles and stuff rose to.
The Attitude Era totally destroyed the competition, and they all had to go somewhere.
You see, this is your same argument. That you've got one argument in this whole debate, and and that is they somehow managed to survive during this period.
No, I'm sorry. So what other era of wrestling has totally destroyed the competition, put them out of business, and had to be absorbed by WWE? What other era of wrestling did that?
I mean, it just so happened that that's when WCW became, competition. It just happened to coincide, and the only thing WWE did to combat that was, it wasn't even the Attitude Era. It was Stone Cold Steve Austin. It was one guy. That was it. That's all it was.
Stone Cold Steve Austin single-handedly did this. I don't believe you.
Yeah, it was all down to Steve. So you can take your era, you can shove it because.
Look, I maybe I'm a bit lactose intolerant, so I just can't handle the fucking cheese of the golden era. Right.
I mean, that's when wrestling was at its peak, Anthony. You had, it was family friendly. Everybody had a character. Everyone had a gimmick. Everyone was immediately, recognizable. Now it's just, in the Attitude Era,
being perfect. Yeah, that's a gimmick.
Well, it's better than bloody the gimmicks in the Attitude Era, isn't it? It was like watered down versions of that. It was like, well, we did all the jobs in the golden era, so what else can we have? I don't know. This guy. I mean, even that, like, they basically watched too many horror movies, didn't they? They were like, well, we're going to give everybody powers now. We can set things on fire and lightning and stuff like that. It was unrealistic. Even more unrealistic.
I'm sorry the golden era couldn't afford fireworks, Carl. I'm sorry about that.
Well, I mean, I'm surprised the Attitude Era could, because that was basically when they were floundering to try and stay afloat during that period, wasn't it? So, it's only because
Razzle did it, didn't it?
And you keep talking about how the Attitude Era is what saved WWE, but isn't it really that WCW imploded on itself? So no matter how bad the Attitude Era was,
pretty sure WWE kicked their ass.
It was going to survive because WCW couldn't help themselves, and they quickly turned off the Attitude and went to Ruthless Aggression, and that's when the rise happened for the new era. So the Attitude Era was just a blip, in my opinion. A pimple on the arse cheek of the WWE. That's what the Attitude Era was.
It's a difficult argument to make given the current controversies, but let's be honest, like, it was the Attitude Era that gave us the heel evil boss that is Vince McMahon.
Yes.
Which is iconic and had never been done in another wrestling company. It has been repeated loads of times since, but hadn't been done before.
He basically just stole that from the Golden Era. We had President Jack Tunney back then, and everyone
Tunney wasn't that evil.
Everyone hated Jack Tunney.
He wasn't truly evil. He didn't screw Brett.
I mean, they didn't even have the best commentary team. Everyone goes on about King and JR in the Attitude Era. There was no Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon. So, there you go.
I feel like that I disagree. I can't say anything bad about Monsoon and Heenan. I can't do it. I don't care what the debate is. I can't say anything bad about them. Like, I'm not even going to try. But JR and King were iconic. What a duo. And Unfiltered King was the best King. I know we can't quite have that same guy now because, it's not proper. But still.
Exactly. Whereas Anthony, I can switch on the Golden Era and I can still watch it and enjoy. I can enjoy it.
Yes, I can do that with the Attitude Era. I'm just not allowed to admit it.
It's so good that it's timeless, Anthony. And you can't say that about the Attitude Era, can you?
Look, I think the reality is, Carl, is old men like the golden era, right?
I
And
am an old man.
and my generation like the Attitude Era. That's the bottom line of it. I'm sorry if you're an old man, right? I'm sorry about that. But if you're young and cool, but not actually that young, then Attitude Era is for you, and that's the bottom line of it. The cool kids like the Attitude Era, and if you don't like it, if you think the golden era is better, you're obviously not cool.
Okay. So were they our closing arguments?
Maybe. I don't even know. I don't even know how to end this thing. I don't even know
Well,
how we decide who wins. We didn't think that bit through.
Well, maybe it's not for us to decide. Maybe. So they were our arguments for and against. It's probably actually interesting to chat. What do we really think now that the actual debate is done? What are your actual thoughts? Or if you want me to share mine, I don't mind.
No, I mean, as far as actual thoughts, now we've had our little bit of fun, if you will. As far as actual thoughts go, like the Attitude Era will probably always hold a place for me, and I'll probably always favour it because that was what I started wrestling on, especially with because I watched a bit of WCW, but especially with WWF as it was at the time, and our high school days. It was very firmly Attitude Era, and I'll always remember it fondly. But there's a lot of problematic shit in there, and there's no denying it was sort of glamorized, rose tinted glasses. You look back at the iconic stuff, which there's plenty of, but there was loads of shit in there as well. People don't remember the shit that was in there, but there was a lot, probably a lot more misses than there were hits, but you don't remember the misses, and that's the reality of it,
Yeah.
But that being said, personally for me, the Attitude Era is the best era, but that's just on a nostalgic point of view, in all honesty.
Okay. Well, my actual thoughts are I fucking love the Attitude Era, so that was very difficult for me to try and shoot that down for 25 minutes. But yeah, I think the thing with Attitude Era was it was must-see TV. I don't think there's ever been a time in the whole of wrestling where you had to tune in to see what was going to happen, and that's never been replicated in any era. Now, I've always got a special place in my heart for the golden era because that's where I first got into it, and I do struggle sometimes with which era I do prefer from that one and this one. But for me, there was only ever three true peaks in wrestling, and it was the golden era, which is like 90 to 92. Or maybe like 89 to 92. Then we had Attitude Era, which was like end of 97 to 2001. And then the Ruthless Aggression Era, which was like the next, like 2002 to 2005. They were the only three times where I think wrestling's really been hot.
I totally agree. And the trouble, like a lot of trouble I had with this debate was like a lot of the stuff I remembered and thought it was Attitude Era. You go, oh, actually, that was Ruthless Aggression.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
Like that becomes a bit of a pain in the ass because like we both have said a million times, I absolutely love Kurt, but like you say, he was definitely at his peak in Ruthless Aggression. I wanted him to be the cornerstone of my argument, but there's no denying his peak was Ruthless Aggression. That was when he was at his absolute best.
Yeah, definitely was, and I think obviously, I know we kind of had the Radicals and stuff kind of make a debut in like the Attitude Era and stuff, but Eddie, for example, he became next level in the Ruthless Aggression era, didn't he? And the likes of Edge and stuff started to really, find their own and stuff like that. So that was also another interesting.
It's a funny thing because like you can look at like stars from the Attitude Era, like Edge, the Hardy Boys, Christian, all these people who were like, they were not stars then. They've become stars, but they weren't stars then. So do you give them that credit because they were just there, or do you say like you say they were made in Ruthless Aggression technically?
Yeah, that's what's so hard about it all, isn't it? But it was a really hard debate that because I was trying, like, I was literally just lying through my teeth to try and find holes in and stuff. Like, even when I felt so dirty saying like, oh, and there was pimps and hoes because I fucking love the Godfather. We had him on the show, so here I am like fucking rinsing him. But yeah, obviously there's things about the Attitude Era which were tasteless at the time and frowned upon even more so today, aren't they? But there's no denying that for its time, and even like if I watch back some stuff now from like the stuff with DX and that we were referencing before, with like the political speech and stuff and like things like that, like it's still dead funny and it is like it's must see TV, and it's a shame really doing these type of segments because you realise how piss poor wrestling is today. Like I would have loved to have had this podcast. Imagine if we had this podcast in the Attitude Era. Like
I know, imagine.
We would just be
we would have been like, what, 11? But still.
Well, yeah. But just imagine like how excited it would be. Like, we'd be every week to just be like, oh, imagine living through the Monday Night War and stuff like that. And talking about, can you believe what Stone Cold did this week and stuff. And now, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't get shit like that now, do you? It's a fair point.
No, you definitely don't. So, yeah, it's...
I think a nice way to cap off the debate as well, Carl. Like, obviously, we've give our thoughts, we've had our fun with it, we've give our genuine thoughts, and people can listen to that. But I'm thinking, do we put a poll up and ask our followers what their opinion is? Was it the best era?
That's a good shout, to be fair. Do we basically just ask them a yes/no question of was it the Attitude Era, or do we list like 4 different eras and get them to pick?
No, I think a yes. No, I'm thinking. We've debated it. You can hear our thoughts, but ultimately the questions to them now, or the questions to you guys now, who's are listening, hopefully. Was it the best era in wrestling? I think I need to know the general consensus.
Yeah, you need to know whether people sided with you or people sided with me.
It's not even about side. Like, you may have gone, Anthony's argument was shit, but
but it still
was the best era. Yeah. Like that could be your point. I'm just super curious what generally, beyond the scope of you and me, what people think of the Attitude Era and whether they consider it the best.
Yeah,
because we're of one particular generation. I like to think there's different, like there's older and younger, especially going off our analytics. There's older and younger listening, so it'd be interesting to see what their take is. Are people saying no because they love the ruthless aggression era because that's what they grew up in and stuff like that? Like, is nostalgia an impact enough that you go, well, there's no true greatest era? Probably likely, but it's just a case of who outnumbers who.
I like it. Okay, yeah, we'll stick a poll out and let us know, was Attitude Era the best era, and see, whether you agree with anything we've said as well. So, fun-filled segment. I like that.
Indeed, it was good. We might want to retool it a little bit, but I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, I think anyone who's obviously stuck through to this point, let us know. How would you have us tweak this segment going forward? This was the first one we've done. Obviously, it's always fun to have a debate, and it's quite difficult when you either are debating against the topic, for example.
I might need to understand the scoring system of actual debates a little bit better. To maybe we can introduce a scoring system of it. Like, you have your statements and rebuttal, and then I assume, like, I don't know how we'd decide sort of between just you and me who won that argument. We might need to bring in an independent adjudicator to decide.
Carl wins again.
Like, that might be something we can do in the future. Like, we get our usual special guest in your Brad to be the independent. Well, it's not really independent because bloodline and all that. But he can
vote
maybe
for me if he knows what's good for him.
We could raise the point, debate the point, and then he can decide who gets the win on that particular point. Maybe we could try it like that next time. I don't know why we're discussing it here. It's like you're basically just deciding how you're formatting your show, and I'm still here listening. So,
basically, this is a little peek behind the curtain. It's special. This is what we do just before we hit record. What we're going to do today, I don't know. We'll figure it out as we go. Sound. That's how we roll. We're live all of the time. No editing on this podcast.
Always live.
So yeah, we hope you enjoyed that. Let us know. All feedback welcome, positives, negatives. Let us know, and then the next time we do one of these, we'll all take it all on board. But yeah, we'll put a poll up. Let us know, is the Attitude Era the best era? And yeah, let us know whether you found our arguments compelling in any way, shape, or form, and who whether we've made you change your own opinions. But another fun-filled week.
We've converted some people to the Attitude Era.
We have, yeah. It's like the book of fucking Mormon, but for us. Can we talk to you about the WWF savior, Stone Cold Steve Austin? So
Austin 316 says.
Austin 316 says that's us for another week. So here is the lovely Georgia Smith to say goodbye, and make sure you watch all the other segments, and buy our t-shirts and stuff from Pro Wrestling Tees, and follow us on the socials and that. You know what to do. So yeah, till next week. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, it's Georgia Smith here, and you've heard me on A to the K. These guys are awesome. Check it out. A to the K. A to the K.
To the K.